Hi, Jesse.
Hi Torkil, good to see you here.
Thank you, you too.
So Alan is tied up with some other things at the moment, so you promised you would give us a little update on what's been cooking in the Neptune kitchens.
Absolutely. Yeah, what we're working on right now, the short answer is it's the consensus logic. So we have a program that can, as Alan has talked about previously, we have a program that can verify the proofs that the virtual machine, that the Stark engine outputs, and that's like a key part of the solution. And right now, what we're working on is transaction consensus logic. And in a nutshell, it just means that we need to write the programs that ensure that when you spend money, you better have received some money, right? You can't just print money out of the thin air.
Before we dig
Things
into
like that.
does that mean, because with Alan, the last couple of sessions we talked about the recursive prover and optimizations that you were making. You were finding certain things that could be optimized, and he expected that would take a couple more weeks. Is that sort of finished? Are you guys moving on now?
I would say that's kind of finished. Software is, I guess, never really finished, but it isn't what we ought to focus on right now, in my opinion. So yes, I guess the short answer is yes. I think that's kind of finished, actually.
So where does that put us in the roadmap?
Well, I guess it puts us at a place where we are only missing 2 or 3 key components here. We need to write the transaction logic so it can run in our virtual machine, Triton VM. And then we need to write the block logic, the programs that check whether a block is valid or not, and the rules for that. And since we've introduced some new cryptography in this blockchain project, that's a non-trivial task to write this. Like we've invented the algorithms and we've implemented it in Rust, and now you could argue it's basically just about translating it from Rust to the assembly language of our virtual machine.
Which is still non-trivial.
But we are so lucky that we have our own virtual machine for this project, and that means that if we need an instruction that can do if we need a particular instruction, we can just add it to the virtual machine. It has a cost to add a new instruction, of course, because the proving times usually in the general case increase when you add a new instruction. But it can be well worth it to add new instructions. And that's and that's some of the beauty of the engineering work that we are doing right now. We're writing the programs. We see this is actually way too slow. We need to make it faster. Okay, let's add this instruction, and then the program is a lot more efficient.
And what should we think about when you say instructions? What kind of instructions exist already?
So Triton VM is a stack machine, a stack-based virtual machine. And if you've studied computer science, you will know what that means. And if you haven't, you will not. But the instructions, they can add 2 numbers together, for example. That's one instruction, right? Take 2 numbers and give me their sum. That's an example of an instruction. Okay. And then it can do things related to memory, where it can read from memory and write to memory. And when you put enough of these instructions together, you can do anything. You can write any program.
Does it feel like things are finally coming together now?
To me, it does. Yeah. It's no secret that Alan is the architect of this project, and there's been some things that I haven't quite been clear in my mind, but almost everything is solidifying right now, and that's a very, very nice feeling.
Okay. And so what do the next weeks, months look like?
More of the same, writing these programs and writing the transaction programs and the block programs, like I mentioned. And then we need to harden them. We need to take a good look at them and say, can the logic here be abused in any way? Can this program return true situations that we do not intend it to return true, for example? And that kind of hardening process will also take some time, and we need to be diligent about that, because one error in one of these programs could in the worst case make the whole blockchain unsound. So we need to get it right.
Have you done any hardening up to now?
Absolutely, yes. But it's mainly been maybe in a dialogue, or not as a structured process. But yes, it comes automatically when, for example, we came up with a way of handling memory in the virtual machine that turned out not to be sound, and then a former colleague of Alan pointed that out, and then we had to fix that. So yes, I would consider that hardening.
There's also the hardening. There might be externals involved as well.
Absolutely, and it's something we encourage. We have bounties set. We are awarding bounties for people who can help find holes in our programs, preferably before launch.
Before launch. So about launch, was that a fixed sort of month you had envisioned beforehand, or how does that look right now?
Yeah, I think for a long time we've said summer of 24, but it might turn out to be fall instead. It shouldn't be winter. No, I don't think it'll be winter.
Shouldn't be winter. Okay, that's fair enough.
Late summer or fall. That's my current prediction.
And what should we imagine with launch? Well, what does that mean? Like the three of you flip a switch, or what's?
Yeah, something like that. Like the three of us, we start running client program probably at a pre-announced time. So anyone who's interested can join immediately. And then the world has a new blockchain, and I'm very, very excited about that. There are immediate challenges that we will have to address even after launch. One of them being proving time. It's still, even though we've done a lot of optimizations and gotten far, we are actually close to 30 kilohertz right now in the prover, which I think is a great result. It would be nice to be at 300 kilohertz. It would be nice to have a prover that's 10 times faster, and maybe we can get there with if we put a month off writing algorithms for graphics cards, which I think is one of the things we could or should be doing shortly after launch.
Mm-hmm. And why are you excited about this project? Like what's your motivation here?
I think, to answer that question, I have to step a little bit back. I guess 10 years ago, if you had asked me, well, what will be the price of Bitcoin in 2024, I would probably have said at least $1 million. I know that a lot of people think the gains in Bitcoin have been astronomical, and to some degree, of course, they have. But if you look at it from a macroeconomic perspective, Bitcoin is still pretty irrelevant. Bitcoin is worth a bit more than $1 trillion. I think it's like 1.3, 1.4 trillion dollars, and that's less than a percentage of the value of all fiat currencies in the world, right? And so I think I had imagined that this transition, away from fiat money to blockchain money, that would have run faster than it actually has. And you can ask yourself, why hasn't it run? Why hasn't it run faster?
I have a different
there are
question.
multiple options there.
I have a different question. If my question is more, how are you? So 10 years ago is 2014. How are you? What was your mental model back then that you could, let's say, confidently predict that there would be an astronomical rise in the price of Bitcoin?
That Bitcoin is superior to. I thought that Bitcoin was superior to government currencies in all relevant aspects, and that it was unstoppable. Like, even if some big powerful political system were to attempt to stop it, it would not be possible. And I think I was right about the second part. We have seen China, for example, wage war against Bitcoin without any apparent success. So I think I was right that it was unstoppable, but where I was wrong was that Bitcoin was superior to fiat currencies in all qualities or along all dimensions. I think I was wrong about that.
So which dimensions are you thinking about?
One of the problems with Bitcoin is that you broadcast to the entire world your transaction. You're saying, I'm sending this and this much money to this and this person. In some cases, it's maybe possible to hide where the money is going. It's still, when you're using Bitcoin, you're leaking to. If you're using Bitcoin as a company, you're leaking way too much information, and you'll be leaking, customer relations, customer, the prices that your customer pays, the prices that you pay for supplies. You'll be leaking way too much information to to your competitors, and that's not something that that fiat currencies do, right? Where if you have a business and you buy 1,000 barrels of oil, that's a transaction that happens in the banking system, and there might be some bank clerks that will see it. But in the general case, that information will not be leaked to the whole world. That information, more importantly, will not be leaked to your competitors. And I think that's one of the potential reasons that Bitcoin hasn't had the success yet that I envisioned.
Interesting. So that goes to the, I guess, the privacy aspects, right? Having private transactions. How is that? Don't want to make this a Bitcoin conversation per se, but how is that with the Lightning Network? My understanding is that it's more sort of opaque what's happening there.
That's absolutely true. If you use Bitcoin Lightning transactions, it's much more limited how much information you leak. That's absolutely true. But right now, Lightning only works for rather small transactions. So I think it would be difficult to buy 1,000 barrels of oil with a Lightning transaction.
But to trace it back to my original question, does this mean that your motivation is to rectify the market situation for companies so that they can transact with more privacy?
I would say so. Yes, that's one of my motivations. Absolutely, it is to test my hypothesis. I guess see if I'm right that the reason that blockchain money is not being used by companies today is that it's not sufficiently private. That's one of the hypotheses that will be tested by the launch.
And so walk us through the other dimensions that you were thinking of back in the day.
Well, fiat currencies can be printed. If either your local government wants more money, it can print, or if the local government perceives that there is some economic crisis, it can print more money. And so it's very unpredictable what the money supply will be in the future with your fiat currencies, and Bitcoin does not have this deficiency. I think that's what actually got me hooked on Bitcoin originally. I still think it's probably the most important quality of money. It is that you can that you have a limited and preferably even a predictable supply. Like gold, the gold supply, for example, is limited, but it's not completely predictable, and Bitcoin is both.
Interesting. And if you think about those dimensions that you had in your mind back in the day, and you think about Neptune now, how does it score along some of those dimensions, and maybe some new dimensions appeared? Let's talk about that.
I think in terms of predictable and limited supply, it's on par with Bitcoin. In terms of transferability, well, as long as you have data, then you can send it everywhere in the world with the blink of an eye. It's like sending an email, right? So their Bitcoin is already at the maximum score you can get. So Neptune can't really beat that. Acceptance, of course, like how many people, how many economic actors accept Bitcoin in their daily business, or fiat currencies. And this is, of course, where fiat currency has the biggest lead, right? You can go down to the kiosk on the corner, and you can buy a liter of milk or an apple with fiat currencies, and you can't really usually do that with Bitcoin yet, and you certainly cannot do it with Neptune. So that's where Neptune, of course, will be the weakest, at least in the beginning. That there aren't that many people who would be willing to accept it in the beginning.
That's not an intrinsic property, though, of the currency. That's more a consequence of its lifetime, I guess, or its maturity.
I guess it's a consequence of its history as well.
Yeah.
I could make a copy of the Bitcoin source code right now and just start it right now, and it probably wouldn't take off in any meaningful sense, even though it would be the exact same technology as Bitcoin. So it's not only about technology, it's also about like when you enter the market and subjective parameters that are hard to quantify or even define.
Okay. Maybe.
But I think if you bring something new to the market, if you bring innovation to the market, which I think we're doing, then you will have some users. There will be some people who want to try out this new technology, and that will be your user base in the beginning. Will be technical people who want to try out this new technology, and that's a way of hopefully bootstrapping a network.
And do you imagine that might be those companies that you were envisioning?
I think at the beginning will be private individuals who wanna tinker around with new technology. But when Bitcoin launched, it suddenly gave rise to new business opportunities. There was one of them was what's it called, Satoshi Dice, where you could
I remember, yeah.
gamble online, and you got the results immediately, right? So all you had to do was send your money somewhere, and then immediately either you got double the money back, or with a higher likelihood they kept your money. That kind of business opportunity is something that did not really exist, or that business opportunity didn't really exist before Bitcoin. And if it did, you would have to go through a KYC AML registration process. So what this shows is that when you bring innovation to the market of money, new business opportunities arise, and I think that's very, very, very exciting. All right, good talking to you, Jesse. See you next week.